Aries 28, a large disappointed audience. We seek popularity, most people do. And that popularity is ephemeral. It comes and goes. We become flavour of the month maybe, and then nothing. And it's not really worth the price we pay for it in the long run. In the short term, we get that lovely dose of attention, and it feels good. It's a pleasure. But in the long term, being in the limelight, receiving all of that attention from so many people, the price that is demanded of us is a capitulation to the collective lowest common denominator of qualities that set, our audience, thinks is right. And not one of us fits that pattern. We're all unique. Each one of us is different in some way from what is considered normal. We've all got our eccentricities and idiosyncrasies. And it is in these eccentricities, these differences, that we find our true expression of self. The authenticity of who we are is not expressed by being an obedient copier of what the priests and teachers and parents have explained to us is the way to be. That will not produce an individual. That will produce yet another carbon copy of. But that's not the soul's purpose here, to be a copy of mediocrity. The soul's purpose is to be unique. So the popularity that we might gain from capitulating to common values comes at the cost of losing the soul's joy and purpose in being here on earth. It's too big a price. It's inevitable that we will disappoint our audience anyway. This is the birth sun sign of Charlie Chaplin, this degree. One of the most popular entertainers of that period. But eventually his audience became very disappointed with him over his political approach. It's happening all the time. Everyone who's in the limelight, whether it's a president of America or a pop star or an actress or whatever it is, they come and go. And popularity always comes and goes. It doesn't stay with us. Therefore, the idea of pleasing someone else in order to be popular with them is false. It's just not the way to go. The way to go is to be true, to be really who you are all of the time. And if that leads to some people getting upset with you, you have to just understand that it's them who is upset. It's not yourself. You know, if somebody can't handle who you really are, the truth of who you are, and they can't handle it, let them just move on. Let them leave your life. You know, because you need to be who you are. Now, of course, there's a requirement for a spiritual person to be somewhat sensitive about how that authentic approach is presented. There's no point in upsetting anyone or disappointing somebody if it can be avoided. But if it can't be avoided, then it just has to be done. People just have to accept that you are that way. And they have to come to terms with their feelings about disappointment with you. One sure way to disappoint people is to say that you're going to do something and then not do it. And the idea that you should be allowed to do that in the name of freedom is immature and irresponsible and damaging, and certainly leads to disappointment in others. So one way to avoid being disappointed yourself is to not disappoint other people. So if you say you're going to do something, then really you have to do it. You know, once you've said you're going to do something to another person and they depend upon that, then you have to do it. It's not okay to change your mind or change your feelings or to say there was a difficulty that you couldn't overcome. You can renegotiate if that happens, by all means, but you can't just not keep your word if you want to avoid disappointing people. And a really kind of advanced, mature, spiritual person would be absolute in their word. Their word is sacred. It's really important to avoid disappointing people, and in fact to disappoint yourself, because that energy of disappointment is demoralizing. It's kind of soul destroying. Disappointment. Expectations are filled with excitement and optimism and light, and if they're dashed, then the equivalent amount of shadow descends upon you. And in the extreme, this becomes depression. Disappointments lead to depression, very often. Mostly, I would say. So we have to avoid disappointing both ourselves and others. And this has to do with making sure that our expectations are realistic, that there is no wishful thinking that's guiding us towards our expectations. When we actually plan something properly and we do it well, and we've got skills and the time is right and the circumstances and resources are right, then we can expect our input to produce a certain output. That level of expectation, that's totally valid, of course. But if you get involved, let's say, in a relationship, and the first attraction and the honeymoon period all go really, really well, and you make a commitment to be together, the idea that honeymoon period can continue is ridiculous. We're going to disappoint each other a little bit. Whatever it is that we do, we need to take others into account. What we do depends upon our will and our sensitivity. The motivation to do something is what will is. It's a feeling that we're to do this, that we want to do this right now. That kind of feeling, that's based on will. That is will. And yet sensitivity comes into this too, where if we're sensitive to the needs of a situation, to the time, for the opportunity to strike or whatever, if we're sensitive to variables like that, and indeed to other people and what they want and what they don't want, if we have that sensitivity and the will, then we cause to occur in the world what we choose to occur. The bottom line really is for us to learn detachment. Now, detachment does not mean avoiding your passion or avoiding involvements. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is to be actually passionately involved in this moment. And the detachment that we feel comes from not having a specific requirement for the outcome of whatever we do. Let the outcome be what it is. We're detached from that need, from that expectation. And the detachment is what frees us from the risk of disappointment. The enlightened being would simply engage with an artwork or a behavior, and then when that's finished, there'd be something else to engage with. And we think about those Tibetan monks who do the mandalas. They spend such a lot of effort and time building these intricate designs made of coloured chalk, and it's a wonderful, most beautiful artwork. And as soon as they finish, they just appreciate it for a moment or two, and then they blow it away. It's destroyed. And that's to teach them to learn detachment. However beautiful your creativity in the moment is, let it be when it's finished. An example is in parenting. You're birthing a child, and you're absolutely involved in the well-being of that child. But bit by bit, over its childhood, you have to let go. You have to let go so that the child becomes an independent being. And certainly by the age of 18, 21, that kind of age when the child could be considered an adult, your interest in what they are and what they're doing should start to become more supportive than guiding. Just support what they choose rather than guide them to where they might like to make a decision. I think guidance is important during parenting, but freedom from parental oversight is a requirement, and this becomes very pronounced in the period around 18 to 21 in a youth. They become quite rebellious then to make sure that this is done. Now we have this to learn within ourselves. If we want to be free of the risk of disappointment, we have to detach ourselves from outcomes. If we want to be free of the risk of disappointing others, well, we have to keep our word, don't we? And we have to be untouched by how they respond to us, have no expectation, requirements of them. And then we can be free to express ourselves enthusiastically, moment by moment. When we're required to do something, or when we require something to occur, then freedom is lost. The soul's freedom is lost. And we cannot experience the soul consciousness. We can't get it because we've attached ourselves to a particular doubtful outcome. What we do know about applause, for example, and popularity, is that it comes to an end, like everything does. And with popularity, it's rather more quickly than you might hope for, quite often.